So what if I told you that getting fired from your job at age 55 could actually be like the greatest financial stroke of luck of your entire career?
I mean, it sounds totally counterintuitive, right?
Right, it sounds completely backwards.
Yeah.
But today we're doing a deep dive into this highly specific source text we have, which is called the Rule of 55, Unlocking Early Retirement Savings.
Which is a fascinating document, honestly.
It really is.
Yeah.
And our whole mission for this deep dive is to figure out how you can access your retirement funds early without getting penalized, bridging that gap if you need cash flow before the traditional retirement age. Because let's face it, reaching that permanent weekend requires some serious maneuvering.
Oh, absolutely. It's essentially this classic obstacle course built into the American tax code.
Yeah.
Most people, they know the baseline rule for the retirement system, age 59 and a half.
That's the magic numbers?
Exactly. That is the magic number. If you try to pull money out of your 401k or your 403b before that exact age, the IRS is basically just waiting to slap you with a 10% early withdrawal penalty.
Which is brutal. I mean, it's 10% of your own money just vanished, simply because you needed access to it on your own timeline.
Yeah, and it operates as a strict deterrent. The government offered you all these tax advantages to put that money away in the first place.
Right, so they want to keep it there.
Exactly. They want it to stay invested until you are officially old by their standards. But there is this completely legal, penalty-free bypass.
The Rule of 55.
Yes,
Yeah.
the Rule of 55. And if you understand the mechanics of it, you can bridge that gap between your mid-50s and the traditional retirement age without giving the IRS an extra dime.
Okay, let's unpack this. So the basic mechanic of this bypass, based on the text, is that if you leave your job in the calendar year you turn 55 or older, you can withdraw funds from that current job's retirement plan without paying the 10% penalty.
That's the core of it, yeah.
And I hear that, and I just picture myself like marching into my boss's office right after my 55th birthday, slapping a resignation letter on the desk, and just sailing off into the sunset.
Yeah.
Like the IRS is rewarding my deliberate, careful planning.
Well, sure, you can certainly do that. But here is the counterintuitive part of the rule, and the text highlights this perfectly. You don't actually have to plan it at all.
Wait, what do you mean?
The IRS does not care about the narrative of your departure. If your company downsizes and your boss marches you into HR to lay you off, you get the exact same benefit.
Wow. Leave it to the IRS to treat a triumphant early retirement and like a devastating corporate layoff as the exact same event.
I know, right? But they are completely impartial. The tax code only cares about two things: the timeline and your age.
So it's like a financial parachute.
I love that analogy, actually, yeah.
Like the IRS doesn't care if you decided to go skydiving or if you were just pushed out of the plane against your will. As long as you're 55, the parachute opens.
The parachute opens exactly the same way. If you leave the company in the year you turn 55 or any year after that, the penalty just vanishes for that specific account.
That's incredible.
And for you listening, this is really why a late career job loss shouldn't trigger an automatic panic. I mean, obviously it's stressful, but it might actually unlock an early retirement cash flow option you didn't even realize you had.
Okay, so the timeline is set. Let's say I'm 55, I've left the company. Now let me guess how this works in practice.
Go for it.
I've been working for 30 years. I have, let's say, 3 old 401ks from jobs I held in my 30s and 40s, just sitting around gathering dust.
Okay.
Now that I've triggered this Rule of 55 exemption, I can just call up all those old account managers and start cashing out entirely penalty-free.
Oh, no. And if you try that, you're going to get an incredibly painful tax bill.
Wait, really? Why?
Because the IRS is offering an exemption tied specifically to the employer you just left. Only the funds housed within that current employer's plan qualify for the penalty waiver.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Those old 401ks from your 30s and 40s, they're still trapped behind the 10% penalty wall until you actually hit 59 and a half.
Ah. So dodging the penalty isn't about my age in a vacuum. It's about my age, combined with the specific location of the money.
Exactly.
If it's not in the account of the job I just left, it literally doesn't count.
Right. Which requires a major strategic workaround if you actually want to use that older money. If we connect this to the bigger picture that the source material outlines, if you're aiming for an early retirement at 55, you have to play this consolidation game while you are still working.
Consolidation game.
Yeah, you need to roll those former employers' plans and sometimes even specific IRA funds into your current employer's plan. And you absolutely must complete this transfer before you leave that final job.
Oh my gosh, I can only imagine the logistical headache of that.
It's a lot.
You're trying to track down account numbers from some company you worked for in, like, 1998. Dealing with forgotten passwords on old, clunky web portals, requesting physical checks to be mailed to your new HR department. It sounds exhausting.
It is a paperwork-heavy process, definitely.
Yeah.
But think of the return on investment for those hours you spend on the phone.
I guess it's true.
You are essentially gathering all your scattered retirement dollars into one giant bucket and pulling it all under the umbrella of your current employer. Once it's all consolidated, when you finally leave that job at 55, the entire expanded balance is protected by the rule.
Okay, that makes sense. But knowing how corporate bureaucracy works, there have to be a catch. Let me guess, not every HR department wants to deal with your old money.
You nailed it. You have to double check if your current employer's 401k plan even allows what they call roll-ins.
Really?
Yeah, not all plans accept outside money. If your plan administrator says no, well, you're stuck. You can't consolidate, which means you simply can't use the Rule of 55 on your older assets.
That brings up a really fascinating contradiction, though, because practically every piece of standard financial advice tells you to do the exact opposite when you leave a job.
Right, the old rollover advice.
Exactly. Whenever you change companies, the golden rule you always hear is, roll your old 401k over into a personal IRA so you can manage it yourself.
And to be fair, in most cases, that is sound advice. But if you are trying to execute the Rule of 55, rolling your money into an IRA is the single biggest mistake you can make.
Wait, why? An IRA is still a retirement account.
True, but think of your final employer's 401k plan like a foreign embassy.
Okay.
As long as your money stays inside those gates, you have diplomatic immunity from the 10% early withdrawal penalty. But the second you roll that money over into a personal IRA, you step off the embassy grounds.
Oh, man.
The protection is just gone. The IRS immediately subjects those IRA funds to the standard rules, meaning you are completely locked out until age 59 and a half.
That is wildly counterintuitive. You do what you've been conditioned to think is the quote-unquote smart financial move by moving your money to an IRA, and you accidentally lock yourself out of your own early retirement.
Exactly. The money must remain in the 401k or the 403b of the employer you separated from. There's no getting around that.
Okay, so let's say I've successfully navigated the bureaucracy. I consolidated my old accounts into the embassy, I didn't roll anything into an IRA, and I left my job right after my 55th birthday in June.
All right.
I've officially dodged the 10% penalty. Now, I'm going to instantly withdraw $60,000 so I can buy a boat and start my permanent weekend. I'm completely in the clear, right?
I mean, you are clear of the penalty, sure, but dodging a penalty is not the same thing as dodging income taxes. You just walked right into a massive tax trap.
Wait, I still have to pay taxes on it.
Of course, every dollar you pull out of a traditional 401k is taxed as regular, ordinary income. Remember, you never paid taxes on that money when you were contributing it during your career.
Oh, right, it was pre-tax.
Exactly. The government deferred the tax, they didn't cancel it.
Right, so when I pull that $60,000 out for my hypothetical boat, the IRS basically treats it as if I just earned a $60,000 paycheck.
Yes. And here is why taking it out in June is a terrible idea.
Okay, why?
For the first 6 months of that year, from January to June, you were working at your job. You were earning a salary.
Right.
Let's say you earned $70,000 in salary during those 6 months. That money has already established your adjusted gross income, or your AGI, for the year. If you then withdraw $60,000 from your 401k in the same calendar year, you are snacking that right on top of your salary.
I see where this is going.
Yeah. Suddenly, the IRS taxes you as if you earned $130,000 that year. You just unnecessarily pushed yourself into a much higher tax bracket.
Ah, okay. I see the mechanics now. So the real strategy here is patience.
Exactly.
I leave in June, but I don't touch the 401k yet. I just live off my standard savings or my checking account for 6 months. Then on January 1st of the next year, I make my first withdrawal.
Precisely. By waiting until the new calendar year, your working income is zero. You have no salary inflating your AGI.
That makes total sense.
So when you withdraw that $60,000, it is taxed in a much lower bracket because it's your only source of income for the entire year. Timing your withdrawals is just as important as qualifying for them.
All right, so I wait until January. My AGI is zero. I decide I'm not going to buy the boat all at once. I'm just going to set up a modest, reasonable withdrawal of, let's say, $4,000 a month to cover my living expenses. Easy enough, right?
It should be. But There's another hidden landmine in the IRS code right here.
Of course there is.
Just because you qualify for the rule, that doesn't mean your company's plan will actually let you take the money out smoothly. You really have to look at the payout rules of your specific employer. Some plans simply do not allow a la carte, monthly withdrawals.
What do you mean? It's my money. Why couldn't I just take it out as I need it?
Well, because it creates administrative work for the plan provider. And to avoid that hassle, some corporate plans mandate that if you want to take money out early, you must take the entire balance at once, a single lump sum.
Wait, here's where it gets really interesting. Let me make sure I'm understanding the math on this.
Go ahead.
Let's say I've been diligent. I've consolidated my accounts. I have $800,000 sitting in that 401k. And I just want 50 grand a year to live on. But the administrator says, no, it's all or nothing. If I take the lump sum, the IRS is going to treat that entire $800,000 as income in a single year.
Yes, it blasts you into the absolute highest federal tax bracket immediately, plus state taxes.
That's insane.
You could easily lose a third of your life savings to taxes in a single day. Taking a lump sum completely destroys the tax advantage nature of your retirement account.
So what's the mechanism to avoid that? Assuming your company isn't forcing a lump sum, how do I get my money out safely?
You want to curate a strategy of substantially equal periodic payments.
Substantially equal periodic payments.
Right. You arrange for the plan to automatically distribute a set amount, say, that $4,000 a month, so it mimics a regular paycheck. This keeps your taxable income low and steady year over year, keeping you in those lower tax brackets while safely bridging the gap to age 59 and a half.
Now, everything we've talked about so far revolves around the magic number of 55. But the source text outlines a really specific carve-out for a certain group of professionals. They get an even earlier exit ramp.
Yes, they do. The IRS recognizes that a rigid age 55 rule doesn't make sense for everyone, specifically public safety workers. For this group, the age requirement drops all the way down to 50.
And this isn't just a vague definition, right? The parameters are really strict.
Very strict. We are talking about police officers, firefighters, EMTs, correctional officers, and air traffic controllers.
Okay.
If you are in one of those professions, you can start penalty-free withdrawals at age 50, as long as you leave your employer in the calendar year you turn 50.
Which makes sense. The underlying logic here is purely physical and operational. The system acknowledges the intense physical and mental toll of those specific jobs.
Exactly. You don't necessarily want a 60-year-old carrying someone out of a burning building.
Right.
Or someone experiencing age-related cognitive decline, managing high-stress air traffic.
Yeah.
The tax code is built to allow these individuals to safely exit the workforce a full decade earlier than the standard corporate employee.
It's a very pragmatic exception.
Yeah.
But let's look at the reality of early retirement, whether you leave at 50 or 55. A lot of people find that sitting on a beach gets really boring after about 6 months.
Oh, all the time.
So what if I use this rule? I leave my corporate job at 55, I start taking my substantially equal periodic payments. And then at 57, I decide I want to go back to work.
Okay.
Maybe I take a job consulting, or I just go work at the local hardware store to get out of the house. Does getting a new job invalidate the withdrawals I'm taking from my old 401k?
This is actually one of the most fascinating loopholes in the entire strategy. No, it does not invalidate your previous exemption. You can absolutely secure other employment and continue taking penalty-free withdrawals from your former employer's plan.
Wait, really? So I could be earning an $80,000 salary at a brand new job while simultaneously pulling penalty-free cash out of the 401k from the job I left at 55?
Yes, because the event that triggered your diplomatic immunity from the penalty was separating from that specific employer after age 55.
Wow.
The IRS doesn't mandate that you sit on a couch for the rest of your life. Joining the workforce again doesn't retroactively close the parachute on that specific account.
Yeah,
However,
however,
you are going to run right back into the tax issue we discussed earlier.
Right, because now I have a new salary stacking on top of my 401k withdrawals, inflating my AGI again.
Exactly. You've shielded yourself from the 10% penalty, but you might be pushing yourself right back into a higher income tax bracket. It requires constant recalibration.
It really is an intricate ecosystem. Let's zoom out a bit and map exactly what we've uncovered here from the source text.
Good.
To use the rule of 55, you need to leave your job in the calendar year you turn 55, or 50 for public safety workers.
Right.
The money must reside in the plan of the employer you just left, which means consolidating your old accounts before you walk out the door. You absolutely cannot roll it into an IRA.
Never.
And finally, you have to meticulously time your withdrawals, preferably starting in a new tax year, and avoid lump sums to keep the IRS from devouring your savings through income tax.
That is a perfect summary of the tax code side. But this raises an incredibly important question, and honestly, it's the biggest blind spot for most people planning an early retirement.
What's that?
You can master all of these IRS rules, you can consolidate your accounts perfectly, and you can map out your tax brackets. But none of it matters if you don't know the specific internal rules of your company's retirement plan.
The fine print.
Exactly. The IRS allows for Rule of 55 withdrawals. It is completely legal. But the IRS does not force private employers to offer them.
Wait, really?
Yeah. Many corporate plans are written with their own internal rules that restrict distributions until age 59 and a half, or sometimes age 62, regardless of what the federal tax code permits.
So let me get this straight. I could do all the math. I consolidate $1 million into my current 401k.
Okay.
I quit on my 55th birthday, assuming I'm a total financial genius.
Okay.
And the HR department just points to page 84 of the employee handbook and says, sorry, our specific corporate plan doesn't allow any distributions before age 60.
And you are completely trapped.
Oh my God.
You can't roll the money into an IRA because you'd lose the penalty exemption, and you can't take it out of the company plan because of their internal rules.
Oh.
You are stuck in the gap with zero cash flow.
Which leaves us with a truly provocative thought to mull over for you listening.
Yeah.
Think about how we generally evaluate a late career job offer. We look at the salary, the title, the commute, the health insurance.
Big numbers.
Exactly. We focus on the big, visible numbers. But if your ability to retire half a decade early relies entirely on the specific, unique rules of your final employer's 401k plan, does choosing your final job become less about the actual salary and more about reading the dense, boring fine print of the retirement administrator?
It fundamentally changes your priorities. If reaching that permanent weekend early is your ultimate goal, the technical parameters of the HR handbook are arguably way more valuable than a slight bump in your biweekly paycheck.
It really is all about the exit strategy.
Yeah.
We're all navigating our way toward that permanent weekend, but it turns out the itinerary isn't just about picking the destination. It's about making sure the very last bridge you cross before you get there isn't going to collapse under the weight of the fine print.
So true.
Thank you for joining us for this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep reading the fine print, and we'll see you next time.